Hey all, it's David Ducker coming back at you, and today I'm going to be telling a horror story. This was the Temple of Traps, and it wasn't necessarily the traps that were the problem. It was puzzles and riddles. And if you've seen my video on puzzles and riddles, then you know exactly how I feel about puzzles and riddles. I'll apologize in advance to our good game master if this seems insulting in any way to him. I've gamed with him before. We had no problems. I found him just fine. I don't blame him. I blame the adventure. And I blame me being in the adventure. Because another player might have loved it. I hated it. But another player might have loved it. You know, we had a communication breakdown clearly when he invited me thinking I would enjoy puzzles and riddles. So my man invites me to the game. He says, Dave, I'm running a Pathfinder game. It's like level 3. It's this Egyptian tomb. And I'm like, oh, I love Egypt. I love tombs. I'm there. I don't really like Pathfinder, but that's a small obstacle because I know the GM is pretty solid. So we start off the game, you know, we intro our characters. We come upon the it's like a pyramid half buried in sand. We go into the pyramid. I think the door closed behind us, like we're trapped inside. And I'm like, oh, that's great, you know, and I'm very excited. His descriptions were fine. We start moving through, and there's like 3 ways that we can go. So first we go off to the left, and there's a puzzle or a riddle or something. I believe the first one, there was like a chessboard on a table, and on the table next to the chessboard is like 500 chess pieces. And then there's like a big locked door at the end of the room. And I'm like, oh, puzzle! Let's go the other way. So, you know, the other players like tried to solve the puzzle. I like put myself on, I turned my camera off and put myself on mute, and I'm like browsing on like Wikipedia or something. Or maybe I'm posting in the forum while they're doing their puzzle. Because I hate puzzles. So eventually they give up, and they say, okay, we're going to go the other way. So I turn my camera back on, and I unmute myself, and then we go over into the main shaft. It's like 3 ways, right? 2 and 1. Go into the main shaft. And we go in, and it's a big room with a locked door at the end, and there's a whole bunch of like urns and vases on the ground, lekythoi and such. And there's like a set of scales, but it's got like 7 scales all connected to one wacky apparatus. And I'm like, oh, a puzzle. Let's go the other way. And they're like, no, 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 we want to try this one. And I'm like, okay, guys, have fun. And I turn my camera off and I mute myself. And I go back to like whatever I was doing. I'm like browsing DeviantArt for, you know, character portraits. I'm checking out like Yahoo News, whatever. We come and finally they say, okay, we can't figure it out. And so I turn my camera back on, unmute myself, and we go in and we try the 3rd way. And it's taken them like an hour each time to like give up on these puzzles. So I am done. I'm so bored at this point. And we go into the 3rd way, and our GM describes, oh, the floor is like a giant chessboard. And there are giant chess pieces in a chess game that's like half finished. And then he like sends us a picture of the exact position of all the pieces, right? He sends us a picture of the chessboard with all the pieces. And I'm like, okay, I know there's no other way to go. I know this. So I'm like, okay, good luck, guys. And I like turn my camera off and mute myself. and I'm like, go back to doing whatever I'm doing. And I still hear them. And I hear them like trying to wander onto the chessboard, and it like electrocutes them for like a D2 damage. Like something ridiculously low amount of damage. If they don't walk in the correct like path, apparently. They get a very small electric shock, and then it just throws them back off the chessboard. There's no way for this not to happen. So so I turn my camera on, and I unmute myself. I say, hey, GM, if my character keeps running onto the board and getting thrown off and running on, will he just die eventually from the D2 damage? And the GM is like, well, I guess eventually that'll happen. And I was like, great, I do that. And then I hung up, and I ended the call. That was it. And that was like 3 hours of my life just gone. 2 hours of puzzle, and then, like a half hour of intro and a half hour until they like realize they could get electrocuted. And then I just intentionally killed my character and hung up immediately on the game. And I don't think I've ever heard from that GM since. And he's not a bad GM. He's really not. I don't know if he wrote this adventure or found it on the internet or what he did. But this was not for me at all. And if he were running something else, I'm sure it would have been great. But puzzles and riddles are like so horrendous. Like, I was just bored because I knew not to try, because I know they're horrendous. I think there were 2 other players. The other players didn't know not to try. So instead of being bored like me, they were so mad and so frustrated, like trying to figure out these things. They're going through, they're trying everything they can think of, they're writing things down, they're making notes and logs, and they're getting really mad. And I can feel the GM is like getting uncomfortable at how mad these players are getting at him. And I'm just like, this is horrendous. I'm thinking this to myself. Like, these guys are pissed. And the GM is like, he seems to like feel bad. Like, he's scared and he feels bad. He's uncomfortable because he realizes he's pissed them off so much. And they're throwing so much heat his way. I'm sitting back, I'm just bored. That's not so bad. I lost 3 hours of my life, but I didn't cuss somebody out. I don't know what happened after I left, but I can only imagine that these guys would eventually just blow up and explode and scream and yell and swear at the poor man. And I've seen this happen before with riddles and puzzles. And that's not even like my main problem with riddles and puzzles. And if you've seen my riddle puzzle video, you know this. My main problem with riddles and puzzles is that they're an immersion breaker. Because you have to solve them in character as your character would. That's what role-playing is. It's doing things as your character would do them. And when you're confronted with a puzzle or a riddle, it's usually like unbelievably hard to do that in the first place. And because your character might be a lot smarter than you or have much greater knowledge of the setting than you do. So either that's going to happen, or your character is like dumber than you. And it's like, well, he's never going to get it. He just couldn't. This character he's like, I'm playing an ogre, barbarian. He's been educated in the mountains. He can count. He can't even count to 10, and he's got 10 fingers, and he can't even count to 10. He counts 1, 2, 3, many. That's it, And I'm like, how can I role play this ogre trying to solve a puzzle for 3 hours? That doesn't sound like fun to me. So you either break immersion, uh, which is bad in of itself. You waste time. I mean, there's so many problems. And I discussed that in the video, and I discussed how to solve this and how to use puzzles and riddles, because I do use them. I just do them right. But this GM, and again, he's probably running something someone else has written, or he hadn't seen my video, or he hadn't been educated about puzzles and riddles. This was his first time. But gosh darn it, this was a horror story. I was so bored, and I just killed my character. I said, okay, well, I'm gonna break character and just kill my character just to get out of here. And for me to break character, it's bad. It's bad when I'm breaking character. Whereas the other guys, though, like, it was ugly. They were pissed. And the GM was very upset. This was a bad scene. So that is my worst ever puzzle riddle horror story. I've had other times when puzzles and riddles ruin games and lives and friendships and immersion, but this was the worst because they were so mad. And I'm so glad that I wasn't trying to figure out these puzzles and riddles. So until I see you again, good day and good gaming.